should a gardener start their summer crops like tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, squash? Is it really safe to plant after the average last frost date? I'm going to talk about that in today's video. Hey everybody, it's Emily. And since a lot of my new subscribers are coming from my video about how to grow sweet potatoes, the easy way to grow sweet potatoes, I thought I'd throw in a gardening video. I think it's especially apropos this year, considering the winter we've had. Because if you read most gardening books, they're going to tell you when to plant your summer crops is after the last average frost date. So for where we live in southeast Oklahoma, our last average frost date is April 15th. Supposedly, we shouldn't have any more frosts after April 15th. Well, we need to focus on the word average. What does average mean? Average means sometimes the last frost date is at the end of, the last frost happens at the end of March. Sometimes the last frost doesn't happen until the 1st of May. And so if you are relatively inexperienced to gardening, you may not have noticed this, so I want to give you a heads up. You need to forget not forget, okay, keep the average last frost date for your growing area in mind, but what you need to focus on is how the winter has gone. Okay, this is 2019. We haven't seen much sun since September of 2018. And if most people in the United States, you know what I'm talking about. The sunny days have been few and far between, lots of cloudy days, way more precipitation than average, and generally colder than average. What does that mean for the spring? That means probably the spring is going to, the cold in the spring is going to go a little longer than usual. Last year, we had a pretty decent average winter. It was really cold. In December was our coldest month. And then it was more average in January, February, March, and I thought, well, you know what? I think it's safe to plant out my tomatoes and my peppers this year right after the average last frost date. So I did that. I planted about, I don't know, April 16th or 17th. Guess what? You know it's coming. We had a freeze. And what happened was I had been looking at the weather forecast, and there wasn't, I think they had temperatures maybe in the upper 30s. Well, guess what? After I got the tomatoes and peppers in the ground, guess what happened? Yes, the weather forecast changed. So at least I had a heads up. I knew to cover them. They did get some freeze damage, but they all came back because I did cover them. But I was wrong. Even though we had a relatively normal January, February, March, we still had it, and that was the last. If I had waited just 2 more days to plant my tomatoes and peppers, I wouldn't have had to cover them. I wouldn't have had any frost damage. So yeah, it's actually better to wait, and unless you have a hoop house. If you've got a small hoop house or a large hoop house, whatever, if you've got some sort of semi-greenhouse type thing that's going to keep your plants, if you have a plastic covering over your tomatoes and peppers, and I'm talking about, you don't want the plastic to be touching, okay, your leaves. I'm talking about you've got some sort of PVC or something so that the plastic is not touching the leaves, because otherwise they'll get freeze damage. But if you've got something like that, then if the temperature falls into the upper 20s, your summer crops can survive that as long as they've got that protection, okay, that a small hoop house or what have you. However, if you do not want to bother, or you for some reason you can't garner up the resources to cover your summer crops in case of an unexpected frost, then my advice to you is wait until 2 weeks. 2 weeks after your last average frost date, and then you will be safe. Sometimes waiting 1 week, a lot of years waiting 1 week until after the last average frost date will be good enough. But if you really want to play it safe, do not plant your summer crops out until 2 weeks after the last average frost date. And this year, I am going to be following that rule based on the winter we've had. I mean, we're having flurries right now. You know, a week and a half ago, I put up a video, celebrate the sun with me. It's going to be almost 70 degrees. Yeah, now we're having flurries and the temperatures, it's already dropped down from 32 to 30. It's going to keep dropping all day. Yep, this is definitely the kind of winter that bodes a chilly spring. And I am not going to trust that average last frost date thing. So there you go, my garden advice to you this week. I hope it's been helpful. If it has, give the video a thumbs up, share it with your other gardening friends. I'll see you for the next video. In the meantime, take care and be well.